And thank you very much to all that have joined to share something that we know is very valuable for our religious life. There are things that are not new. These are things that we know. There are things that we are practicing or things that we are implementing in our different formation houses, or both at the initial level or ongoing formation. So some of the things you hear as something that is already known, but it's important to remind ourselves of certain elements and also to refresh ourselves a little bit. We all know that when we are in religious life, we need to have our life well integrated, or let me say we need to have a holistic kind of approach of formation in order for those that are in formation to receive something that may help them both humanly, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally, and everything that that helps a person to develop fully in a more mature way. And especially for us, the religious, because in our ministry, we encounter people of different realities and all that. And if we are not fully formed, we find that it's a challenge to cope with that. But also at the same time to remind us that the formators have a great role to play in order to help the people that are in formation to live a life that is meaningful, a life that adds value to what they've chosen to live, and also at the same time to enhance or deepen the relationship that they have with God, but also knowing that they know who they really are. So when we look at the psychosexual integration in formation ministry, we can say that it's a process of harmonizing sexual drives, emotions, and personal values, leading to a mature, authentic sense of self and health intimacy. It involves reconciling bodily needs with psychological and spiritual aspects. This is very, very important that this reconciliation is done in a manner that is life-giving. And it often requires a resolution of our past traumas and integrating fragmented parts of one's identity. When there have been experiences that we have lived, experiences that maybe were life-threatening or put our lives in danger or caused the harm, these may continue accompanying us in our journey of formation if they are not worked on. And when we look at the integration of psychosexual, we may discover that if these elements are left out, this aspect will always be resurfacing, and it will not help us to make a move in our growth, or it will not help us to deepen our relationship with God and the people that are around us. In simple terms, psychosocial integration refers to accepting one's sexuality as a natural and God-given dimension of the person. This is who we are, and this is when we express ourselves fully. We are expressing our sexuality in a mature bloom and accepting that God has given us this gift. And also it means integrating affectivity, which involves feelings, desires, the attachments that we have, and with one's values and the commitments that we make along the way. It also has to do with living celibacy or committed relationships with freedom and not repressing them. So what we can say, psychosocial integration is not about suppression, but about orderedness, conscious, and health expression of oneself. Why is this important information, and why should it be emphasized, especially in our context today or in our era? Why should this be something that we emphasize in the formation? One thing that we all know is that formation is not just an intellectual, spiritual journey, but it is also something that involves the human formation at a deeper level. So when there is psychosexual integration that is missing, or if it is not existing in one's life, we may find that a person may split their spiritual self and the human self. So you have the spiritual dimension and the human self, the spiritual self and the human self that cannot reconcile or that cannot relate. And as a human being, we cannot leave these dimensions as separate entities. They are interconnected, and especially for us who are religious. So when psychosexual integration is missing, you may find that a person may encounter a kind of split in the way that they live their life in terms of the spiritual aspect and the human aspect. Also, when it is missing, you have hidden struggles that may develop secret relationships, develop into addictions, develop into a double life, and at times that may cause mental health disorders because there is something that is missing and we've not been able to integrate it in a normal way. And this can easily be observed for us who are formators if we ourselves are well integrated psychosexually. And then also there is authority or ministry can be misused to meet unmet emotional needs. So there is always that aspect of looking at authority or the ministry itself in a way that is not life-giving and that we misuse it so that we are able to meet those emotional needs that are not satisfied. And when there is integration, the person relates authentically and respectfully to whoever they meet, no matter the kind of person that they are meeting, the person will be able to, there is authenticity in the way that they relate with the people around. There is emotional balance and stability. A person will express themselves in a proper way whereby they know what they are going through. They are able to bring those elements out. If they are happy, they'll bring that happiness out. If they are sad, they'll be able to express themselves in that way freely. If they are angry or if they are living a moment of pain, if they are frustrated, if they are stressed, they'll be able to express themselves in a more mature way because this psychosocial integration has been done. It has been experienced. They are in touch with themselves. They know who really they are and they know what they desire to live. And then also celibacy becomes meaningful, not a burden. They live it with joy, embracing it with all its challenges, with the joys that comes with it. What are the key areas that we can focus on when it comes to psychosocial integration information? One of the most important things is self-awareness. This cuts across all levels for us as formators and for those that are under our care. A person must be able to understand their sexual development history. How has been my history in relation to sexual aspects? How have I developed? How have I evolved along the way? When in my family, how has this been? How have I shared, or has there been a moment where we've been able to talk about this openly? When I've been in school, how have been my experiences? And when I've entered the congregation, what are those experiences that I'm able to recall, the experiences that I'm able to share? Emotional wounds or attachments. What are the wounds that I'm experiencing or that I've experienced before? And what are the things that I'm attached to? What is it that they bring to my attention? If I look at the emotional wounds that I have, maybe how I express my anger, if I cannot manage the emotions or feelings that I may encounter, I can ask myself the question, or this is the format, the for me who can ask themselves, how have I managed to deal with these issues? I may be a victim of abuse, depending which kind of abuse. It could be emotional abuse, it could be physical, it could be verbal, it could be sexual abuse. How have I handled that? And if I've not worked on them, how do they manifest themselves now? And how do they affect my ongoing formation or my growth? What are the patterns of my attraction and relationships with others? How do I, in the way that I'm attracted either to the opposite sex or to the same sex, what are the patterns that I'm able to observe that I'm more inclined to be attracted to this person because of ABCD? What is it that, or what are the tendencies that I'm able to observe in myself that this is how I get attracted to the other person, and also this is how I relate to the person, looking at the age, looking at the kind of life a person is living and all that. How are the tendencies in the way that I'm attracted to the persons and how I relate to these people? And also in self-awareness, what are the tools that can be used in order to really understand fully myself, who I am and what I'm going through, and what is it that surrounds me. There's personal reflection, there's journaling, and there's also accompaniment, which can be psychological, and then also there's spiritual direction. So these are basic tools that can easily help one along the way. And I think they are manageable. I look at my life daily. What is it that I'm living? Do I note down what have been the experiences during the day? And at the end of the week, if I look at that which I've lived, am I happy with myself? Am I able to note something that is not going well? Am I able to note something that is helping me to see the points of growth? Or I need help somewhere? And then accompaniment is very, very important to know that there are moments that I may need psychological accompaniment. There are moments that I can need maybe just a basic mentorship or spiritual direction. And I've got to be aware that these are some of the needs that can help me to develop into a person that will express herself in a mature way. Another aspect is emotional maturity. It includes managing loneliness. Loneliness is something that is very cardinal in our religious life. I may be in a community full of people, but still feel lonely. Also, it comes to what kind of community dynamics are there? What is it that helps me to live, to be in a community, but also at the same time have a strong sense of belonging? But when there is loneliness is part of us and it is normal, but it should not go beyond where we are not able to manage it. If it goes beyond our capacity to manage it, it may result into something that may not help us to grow. And we may engulf ourselves in that loneliness that is unhealthy. How do I manage rejection? There are moments one may say something and it's not accepted. You will do your level best, but all the time you are rejected. How do I manage that? Do I take it in a positive way or it always remains in a negative way? How do I manage my desires, the things that I long for? Also, I have to see the developing of health friendships. How do I relate with others? What kind of friendships do I create? Avoiding emotional dependency. When I'm emotionally mature, I'll be able to avoid emotional independency, whereby I'm dependent on certain people or on certain things emotionally. But when I'm maturely, my levels of maturity in emotional intelligence are high, I'll be able to handle things at a personal level. But also when I need help, I'll be able to know that at this particular moment I need help. And also we can know that we can also look at the formation in itself, that what should it teach? It should teach emotional literacy, which could be emotional intelligence, that the people that are in formation should be able to name the feelings, able to know what is it that is happening to them at that particular time. What are the tendencies of reaction or responding to certain things or to certain situations or to certain people? They should be able to create health coping strategies in order to live a life that is healthy. If, for example, I'm under stress, what are the strategies that I use to help me come out of that stress or to manage it? If I'm angry, what are the strategies that I use in order to manage my anger? So this is very, very important. When those that are in formation are able to know what they are supposed to do, they are able to name what they are going through. They are able to bring out certain elements that can help them deal with those situations. Then we know that we are forming people who are being prepared for something greater, because these are the future members of the congregation. And when there is that lack along the way, we know the effects. That at times we become a problem when we are final vows. When we are fully members of the congregation, we find that we are having issues to deal with one another. we need to have a healthy way of understanding our sexuality. We have many of the people that are joining, or the candidates, or for me, they come at times with shame-based teachings, because there is something that is when their context they are coming from, depending on how they were brought up, at times they are.
So I can put my wet ones.
Sorry, I don't know if somebody's having a question.
I am sure. And these ones, they're yours. Not yours.
Brother Peter, can you please help us to mute those that are?
Has stayed here now.
Even long, I don't know.
So at times, when issues to do with sexuality, at times these are issues that are not talked about. And it is kind of shame when people talk about them, and they come with all those to religious life. And at times they may carry it on with themselves if there is no help that is given. So then there's a different way of understanding sexuality from the context of a person where they're coming from, and in the congregation when they enter. And then also there is a cultural silence around sexuality. People don't talk about it. We know it is there. We know we have to talk about it. At times people learn things in school, those that are lucky, and others, they remain like that without any enlightenment on that. And what they know, anything that revolves around sex is a taboo. Therefore, it should not be talked about. And these are some of the things that are causing sexual abuses in religious life. You may find that a young person is very innocent. They are not fully out. They may be aware at times, and at times they are not aware, but the fact that they cannot talk about it because of cultural reasons, that to talk about sex is a taboo, you cannot talk about it in openness, or you cannot talk about it with a certain group of people. Therefore, people take it as something that is sacred, and in that sacredness, they attach a norm that it should not be talked about. So you may find that a young person may be abused. Others are harassed sexually. They are touched inappropriately, and they will never come out to say, this is what is happening to me. Somebody touched me in a place where they are not supposed to touch me. In the case whereby maybe a person is working in the sacristy or anywhere where there is the opposite sex. So you may find that at times they can be taken advantage of because of the ignorance on those issues. And at times, men or women may bring up those issues deliberately to see if a person is up to the level of understanding. And if they are not, at times they can be taken advantage of. So you may find that a person may be abused and they've not understood that they've been abused. And they may be told, you don't tell anyone that I have had sex with you, because if you say so, this may happen to you. And maybe a person is coming with a connotation from the cultural background where they are told, if you speak about this, something terrible may happen to you. And we may find that a person loses their vocation, or a person may be going through a traumatic situation without really realizing that what happened to them is something that they would have shared and they would have received help. There is also confusion or misinformation. Depending on the information that they have received, they may have some confusions here and there. So formation must provide accurate and holistic teaching that the young people are exposed in a way that helps them to live life to the full. Normalize sexuality as part of being human, because that is what we are. We are sexual beings. And therefore, this is part of us, whether we are religious or not. Clarify the meaning of consecrated celibacy. The young people have to be made aware that this is how it is. Boundaries and relationships. It is very critical in our ministry, and the people that we are helping should be able to know that appropriate physical and emotional boundaries are very important. I should know if I'm a woman, if I'm touched on my breast or on my buttocks or in whichever area that is inappropriate, I should know that this should not be. So I should be able to have physical boundaries. I should not be touched in this area, whether male or female. Somebody should not cross this level. If I'm expressing myself In a way, I should know that I express myself in this, but it does not invite something that is inappropriate. Power dynamics in ministry relationships. At times we may have people who are older than us. We may have people of the opposite sex. We may have people who may not be older than that, but the authority that they carry. So then to see what are the power dynamics that are existing there. Am I able to express myself before an older person, even if culture tells me I should not speak in front of a person who is older than me or a person who holds a position of authority? This must be very, very, very clear. And then also respect for others' dignity, that I should respect the dignity of the other person because we are all dignified beings. Integration with spiritual life. Spirituality should not deny sexuality, it should actually transform it because it forms part of our being as human, in that it involves a health integration which includes seeing sexuality as energy for love and service, not only as an act which involves the genital aspect, no, but that an energy that may help me to express my love and service in the vocation that I've accepted to receive, or to say yes every day in my humanness, but also at the same time knowing that God has given us this gift. But how do we express it? How does it come out of me? That it is not only translated into genital acts. Connecting intimacy with God and mission. If there isn't that intimacy between God and me, I cannot live the mission in the way that God desires me to live. And then also another aspect that is important when it comes to spiritual life is avoiding spiritual bypassing, using prayer to escape human struggles. There is a moment where some people have been told that when the sexual drive takes root in me, I should just go to the chapel. Before the Blessed Sacrament, I present myself. We've got to be realistic. We've got to tell the young people the reality. The sexual drive is an energy that is very, very strong and we cannot avoid it. And also it's an energy that keeps reminding us that we are human beings. We are women, we are men, and blood flows through our veins. Therefore, whatever any person feels, we feel that. But we cannot avoid by saying, no, if this happens, I go to the chapel to pray. Well and good. You can go and pray. But there are also certain mechanisms that we can use to help us embrace that, but also release that energy in a way that is life-giving. What are the things that I can do to help me live this process? What are the things that help me to acknowledge that this is happening to me, but what do I do with that? As compared to telling somebody, at times we confuse them because they don't understand themselves fully. What are the challenges that can be encountered in the formation context, wherever we are, with all the cultural values that have to be respected and also the connotations that are attached to that? The common difficulties that we may find include fear of discussing sexuality openly. In some of the congregations, you find that it is difficult for sisters or brothers or priests to talk about this. There are also cultural taboos, which I have mentioned. There is lack of trained formators that they themselves are afraid about to talk about sexuality. Confusion between celibacy and repression. There is a lot that we find that we do not know how to integrate this aspect. There is hidden trauma and abuse histories. There are people that have been abused sexually or they've been harassed continuously when they were young, and it becomes difficult to talk about it. So when we ignore this, it does not mean that they will be removed, but it deepens them and psychologically will be affected. So it does not mean that when we don't talk about them or their absence, we make them absent in our formation houses. We'll discover that we are just deepening the wounds. What is the role of the formator in this case? Really, you find yourselves in a very delicate situation, but your presence is very, very important in the formation house. So one thing that is very important is the formators must create a safe and non-judgmental space. We must be trained in basic human development and sexuality in order to be more life-giving and more efficient in helping the people that we are forming. We have got to know when to refer to professional counseling when there is need. When I know that a person is sharing with me things that are beyond my capacity as a formator, I should learn to make referrals. If it is psychological help, I look for a psychologist. If it is spiritual direction, I look for spiritual direction. If it's just mentorship and I cannot do that, it is very important to refer a person. And then also have a model health boundaries and emotional maturity. This is what we are required to have as formators. What are some of the practical strategies that can be helpful in the formation programs that we have in the different congregations, at times at the internovitiate and all that? So when there's a structured formation program, some of the contents that can be used to help us in this area is human development, not only to leave it at the level of novitiate or postulancy, but also as the young people are still in ongoing formation, we can bring these elements to at which level are they? Are they able to integrate these aspects? And then also sexuality and affectivity, celibacy and intimacy, boundaries and safeguarding. Sorry, my power is off. Let me just switch on my lamp. Sorry, we are in a place where we have power cuts every evening here in the northern part of Uganda, but it will go. So we've got also to include issues to do with celibacy and intimacy, boundaries and safeguarding. Personal accompaniment is very important. Regular one-on-one spiritual direction. At times, we have to see also where are the young ones going for spiritual direction. And at times, it should not be always the people that we relate with easily because there is conflict of interest. And at times, we've got to know what kind of people are accompanying the young ones spiritually, to avoid certain incidents. When we know the kind of behavior or attitude of a person who is accompanying, we've got to know, is it helpful for the young people? Because at times we've had cases, I'm sorry to say this, where young people have been abused sexually in spiritual direction. So we've got to know, to whom do we send them? If they are not comfortable with the opposite sex, is there a possibility of finding somebody, maybe a sister, or if it is a young man who prefers to have spiritual direction with a priest or with a sister, like that, we see how helpful it is. But personal accompaniment is very important. Psychological support where it is needed. Sometimes it's good to have workshops where they have guided discussions to have with very clear norms, that there are certain issues when it comes to psychosexual integration or sexuality, the people are able to know which dimensions are there. What are these things that we are talking about? Also bring out elements to do with case studies on boundary situations so that they see something that is concrete. At times we may speak, but if there are no concrete examples, it becomes difficulties. And in workshops where we can include kind of role plays where they are able to know, how do I handle attraction in the ministry that I'm in? If I'm attracted to a priest or to a sister, how do I go about that? For sure, the eyes will see. They will see what is handsome, they will see what is beautiful. But what do I do with that? For sure, God has created and we can appreciate. But do I go beyond that? Do I remain there? So in that way, to see what is it that we are doing in the workshops that we are offering for the young people when it comes to these issues to do with sexuality. Safeguarding framework. Clear policies on conduct in the congregation. We've got to have the policies that everyone reads, everyone signs, and that it is clear, everyone understands. Reporting mechanisms in case of abuse, of sexual abuse. What are the reporting mechanisms that we have put up as a congregation? What is the system? Is there a possibility that a sister or a brother or a priest can easily report when they've been abused and they'll still feel protected? Because at times we are having people who are abused sexually, and because of the dynamics that we have or the mechanisms that we have in the congregations, people are afraid to say. Because they're afraid the moment I say, they will not even hear my story, I'll be asked to leave. So you have situations whereby sisters, or I don't know for you, for the male counterpart, but mostly for the women, you may find that a priest may be abusing them and they will not be able to say it. Because in one of the cases that I've been able to deal with, a sister works in the sacristy. She's young. She's being touched inappropriately. She says to the superior, and the superior says, we've been working with this priest and nothing of that kind has ever happened to any of the sisters. You are the one who is provoking him. Now, imagine if she was sexually abused. Will she be able to say it? If only when she was harassed, she mentioned it and we put her off. So then we've got to see, are the mechanisms of reporting helping us? Are they helping the young people that they feel comfortable, that they're able to share openly, that we are able to accompany them to live that process? Education on abuse prevention. What are we putting across to help the people? Information, get education on abuse prevention, that they are not ignorant. They know when I should avoid this in doing ABCD. What are the signs that can help us to have a health integration? A well-integrated person will always be comfortable with their identity, who they are, their sense of belonging, and their place in the congregation or in society. Forms appropriate, respectful relationships. A person with a health integration will always handle attraction without panic or acting out. They will live their celibacy as a choice and not as a burden. And they will show consistency between public and private life. And what is it that can help us understand that a person needs more support? We've got to watch out for secrecy or double life. You'll find that at times the people information are living certain things in a way that is, you find that they are so secretive about their life. You don't know so much, but especially when it comes to their sexual aspect. And you may find that there is a double life that they are living. Then we know there is something that we've got to do in order to help the person. Emotional dependence or isolation. They're always dependent on that particular person. On their own, they cannot stand emotionally. Boundary violations. They don't know where they stand. Persistent confusion or distress about sexuality. Use of ministry to seek validation, even when it is not necessary. So these are not reasons for punishment, but signals for deeper accompaniment. When we see these elements in a person, let us not judge them. Let us not punish them, but rather let us help them. Let us see in which way can we help them, especially when we've seen it openly, we can approach and give help. What are the things that may help us? In some of the workshops that we can have, or some of the sessions that we can have. So in a way to have a kind of formation-oriented reflection, we can ask ourselves or ask the young people to reflect on these elements. How did I learn about sexuality growing up? And from there, we hear how they express themselves. What feelings do I associate with sexuality? Is it fear? Is it shame? Is it gratitude? Or is it confusion? How do I experience closeness, affection, or loneliness? Where do I feel most vulnerable in my relationships? How do my commitments, e.g. with celibacy, connect with love and service? So these are some of they are very simple questions, but also very deep when we really take them seriously, or when we have those that are information able to take them seriously. So in conclusion, I can say psychosexual integration is not achieved once. It is a long life process because every day we are growing. Every day we are encountering a different context. Every day we are encountering new people. So it is an ongoing life process. And we can say that formation ministry should not aim for perfect people, but for honesty, growing, and self-aware persons who can live their vocations with integrity. And with that, I can say we will not be able to judge, we will not be able to discriminate, but we'll be able to accompany people in a more healthy way. And also ourselves, looking at ourselves that we are people that are fully formed, people that are equipped with elements